Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Smith. I'm the President of France Ireland Chamber of Commerce. Welcome this morning to our Fireside Chat series. This morning we have Margot Slattery, Group Head of Social Sustainability and Inclusion and Group People and Culture at ISS World. We're just going to wait a minute or so just to get a few more people in, and we'll start then.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. So I think we're good to go. So good morning, everybody. As I said, this morning we're talking to Margot Slattery. Margot Slattery is the Global Group Head of Social Sustainability at ISS Group Worldwide Services, headquartered in Denmark. She leads the company's efforts to become a global leader in social sustainability, implementing and aligning social initiatives that fall under the ESG agenda and beyond, applying social impact to employees and a wider society. She also promotes diversity and inclusion across cultures, ethnicities, abilities, gender, sexual orientation, LGBTQ+, and generations. Margot is dedicated to promoting social and climate justice, both within ISS and through her roles on various boards and NGOs. She is proud to represent ISS World Services in the valuable 500 movement advocating disability inclusion on board agendas. Margot is recognised as a pioneer in the DEI field and is a sought-after expert by leaders around the world. Her global experience, cultural dexterity, extensive network, and ability to influence leaders results in a reputation for judgment, integrity, and accountability. Some positions held by Margot are currently she's on the board of Bord na Móna, and she was also a member of the Munster Rugby up to December 24. Achievements include 100 Women to Watch in 2024 by the Cranford School of Management, Fellow of AIBF, All Ireland Business Foundation, and the Chevalier de l'Ordre National du Mérite from the French Ambassador to Ireland for support in D&I and women in business in 2019. Margot, good morning. I didn't even read all the bio. It's one of the longest, best bios I've ever read. So I'm hoping I'm doing you justice there.
You're very good, Chris. Thank you. And should listen. There's a lot of info there, but sure, as you know, that when we scale it down, it's just about the person. And thanks for that.
You're welcome. Just to say to everybody, this will be available afterwards on the France Ireland Chamber of Commerce LinkedIn and Facebook. It will be recorded, and at the end, if we have some time, we might ask for a few questions. So Margot, we always start off with a question of describe the company and its presence in Ireland.
Sure. So it's actually a Danish company, Chris, and I'll maybe at some stage we'll come back to the Danish involvement, but it's a Danish company based out of Copenhagen. We're 325,000 people globally, and the organization is 125 years old. So as you can probably imagine, as a global organization managing across many, many countries across the world, so it has a base in 30 countries, and one of them is Ireland. The Irish business is managed by my colleague, Eric Dial. He's the country manager for Ireland, and they're employing about 4,000 people in Ireland. And the services that ISS provides are what are called outsourced services in the facilities management or integrated facilities world. So if you look at a building, I always kind of take it down to this, and you look at all the parts of the building. So I'm in a nice building this morning with the chamber. You know, we've got lights, air conditioning, the building functions well. You might have external things happening, security, all the services of a building, and that's what we provide. So somewhere in the region of a couple of hundred services to various companies, and we have business in sectors such as banking, pharma, business and industry, etc., etc. So it's a big and a broad base, but exciting world to live in. Although a low margin world, so that brings its own challenges.
I can imagine. I mean, 325,000 people globally it's huge, Margot. I can imagine a company that size. I mean, it's funny. I kind of knew about ISS, but I didn't really know much about it till I spoke to you. But I mean, a company that size with all those facilities, is 4,000 people, facilities management is in Ireland. How many people in Ireland did you say? 4,000, is it?
About 4,000, yeah.
Wow.
So that's Eric's team. But people will be working in our customer sites, and that's, I suppose, what's a little bit different. So they're obviously, we have an office here in Ireland in City West, but our locations are wherever our customers are. So you might have a couple of hundred at a location providing a service, etc. It hugely depends on the services that we provide.
It's very competitive, Margot.
Very competitive. As you know, Chris, I used to work with Sodexo
Yeah.
previously, and I managed the Sodexo business in Ireland, and ISS were one of my big competitors. It's a very competitive, very low margin, very hard to, it's tight on everything. We've other big competitors like Aramark and Compass, people might know, Gather and Gather, and there's many more, and lots of smaller companies as well. And the bigger companies probably have more global and international business, and some of the smaller companies more local. So you've always got to compete both on a local level and international. And you might have as well, you might have global group contracts. So, for instance, if I take an example, I'm calling out a name here, but in full transparency, say Barclays Bank, we provide
Yep.
services to Barclays Bank all over the world. So we will manage their services in Ireland, but it's a global group contract, just happens to be in Ireland. So we have that differentiation. There's what they have in the Irish business and then global contracts as well.
Very good. No, it's a huge company. And can you describe, Margot, your role and how you came to be in the role? I mean, I know you were in Sodexo prior to that. So, how did you, what is the role? What do you do? And did they obviously headhunted you, I presume, did they?
Yeah. So maybe if I give you that sort of small background to it, I've been in Sodexo from a very long time, nearly 30 years, believe it or not, in Sodexo.
Wow.
And I'd been the CEO and country president for the business in Ireland, running the operation, so a P&L leader, until that 2018 or thereabouts. And I'd kind of got to the stage, where many people do, that your career goes through phases, and I'd attained a lot by having that role, and I would hope had done a good job. We'd grown the business to about 150 million of a turnover, and I was anxious to kind of find what that next phase was, to understand what might be out there in boards, etc. I'd started doing public boards and things like that. So I wasn't actively looking, but I was kind of thinking about change, because the challenge I had was that I'd been with one company for most of my working life, and about 20, 30 different roles in the organization. And then in 2018, I changed roles within Sodexo into a global role, because I knew that if I wanted to have that board experience and a wider group, I needed to sort of do something outside of just my Irish remit. So I changed into the role as their group head of diversity. So it was, and that was fantastic, and working all over the world, because there was around 70 countries with Sodexo. And Julie Ennis took over for me in Sodexo, and subsequently David Fox. And it was there I was carrying on, and the beginning of COVID had started, and I was doing my role from Ireland, because obviously we were in COVID. And then at the sort of latter end of 2020, I got a call from a headhunter saying, would you like to have a conversation and see what, that ISS are looking for someone for the same role as you're currently doing. And if I'm fully honest, and I'm sure it's the same with many of us in business, and particularly at a senior level, you're interested to know what your competitor is doing from a kind of just a sheer nosy kind of perspective. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll take a call. And I took a call, and I really kind of, something switched to me, and I thought, oh, wow, this is interesting. And I left the call with the headhunter, and I said, we had a feedback afterwards, and I said, look, I'd love to meet the CEO. They wanted to meet me. I said, I'd meet the CEO, and so that was a kind of progression. I met the then CEO, a guy called Jakob Arab Anderson, who's currently the CEO of Carlsberg, probably. And I had a very funny encounter, and I'll make it super quick. But he said to me, I was at home in Leitrim at the time, and he said to me, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in the west of Ireland. You wouldn't know, talking to a man from Denmark." And he said, "Oh, I know the west of Ireland." And he said, "What county?" And I said, "County Leitrim." I said, "You surely don't know that." And he said, "You know Drumshambo?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually about four kilometers up the road." So we had a very strong bond from the beginning.
Straight away.
And Jakob just convinced me that they had a desire to do something really change making, and I had a conversation with him and their chief people officer, Corinna, and to be honest, I made a decision to move after nearly 30
Mm.
years. And it was nervous because, I love Sodexo, and to this day I still have a huge respect for it. But it was time for me to do something for myself. So that's how I joined. And just coming back to the last part of your question, so the role was initially as the group head of inclusion, diversity inclusion. And really over the last, I'm there nearly 5 years now. And over the last 5 years, that has really sort of evolved. And about 2 years ago, I was asked to take on the part of social sustainability. And what we did was we wove the inclusion work that we were doing really into that.
Yeah.
And I think that was quite appropriate because the world has changed a bit as well. And we were able to, I think, put, excuse the pun, sustainability into the work we were doing by making sure that it was part of a bigger agenda. So now the work I do, and I've just recently actually taken over responsibility for everything we're doing in sustainability. So I lead the team on that. But obviously we have experts in all the different areas. But really what we're doing is trying to make very impactful work, very measurable work, very tangible work, so that as an organization we can say, this is what we've done, this is how it's impacted our people. Because with 325,000 people, you
Yeah.
can't sit back and just sort of play lip service to that. So we're working very hard to do things like education and learning for people and fair wages and many other things like that. So it's driving big global I suppose, projects, Chris, that we're doing across the world to try to make better living for the ecosystem of where we operate. So hopefully that's
Uh,
given you a bit of understanding.
I know, absolutely. I mean, I'm fascinated that after 30 years you decided, to segue away from Sodexo because I mean, you had a great career there. You built it up. Obviously, you'd seen the business grow, and then you took a leap of faith, and then you went into, ISS, and your role has kind of changed a little bit in the last few years, which is great. But
Yeah.
you were just such a smooth operator. You went straight into it, no problem, and you didn't phase you at all. You know, I mean, but I'm interested in the fact that if you 325,000 people, they're all over the world. So that them obviously different cultures, different countries. How is, is that difficult to manage, or is that challenge? How does that work for you?
It's really interesting. I think before I did a global role, I thought that was going to be very difficult to
Mm,
manage. But actually it doesn't. But what you have to start with in the very beginning is a real understanding of the difference. And there's a great book by a lady called Erin Meyer, which is around cultural competencies. And you need to understand that, what resonates in Europe does not resonate in Asia. What resonates in Asia doesn't work in the Americas. You know,
yeah.
you can do some great work in Chile, but somebody in Hong Kong isn't going to find that one. So you have to really understand the difference, and even simple things like even time zones. If we're even arranging something, Australia's people are going into their night when it's our morning. You can't just expect people are going to be able to be tuned into your agenda at the same time of the day. Another just great example, Christmas comes along and working for the Danes and Europeans, we're all hygge in Christmas right now. The Asians are saying to me, well, what's all this? We don't take Christmas off. It's not something we celebrate in quite the
Mm.
same way. So you have to understand all those different cultural competencies. And that's only just a small example. But truly, once you do, then you sail through that pretty smoothly. And obviously you have to always adapt and allow for that difference, and not start with your mindset, but be in the
Yeah.
mindset of the people who you're helping to serve and support.
No, understandable. Yeah. Then, so I mean, what is the most challenging aspect of your role? Then, I mean, I know you've given some background there, but what other kind of challenges do you have?
Well, I think the biggest challenge really today is that the agenda that I'm leading is really important to us as an organization, because, as a listed company in the Danish Stock Exchange and as a European company, we take sustainability full stop very, very seriously. And people would say, oh, is it going down the list of what's important? But it's not for us. And we're doing things like double materiality analysis, CSRD, and we know there's recently been the omnibus and all that kind of stuff coming out of Europe. but it's trying to actually bring that to life for all of our countries and make sure that we keep our country leaders and managers and, senior teams interested, to get them to engage and get them to see that that's not just side of desk stuff and that it really matters. And, all it takes is something to go wrong. And then you understand that, if you haven't managed this risk, and it's a huge risk in any big organization, particularly where you're a huge employer of people, because, like, for instance, I give you an example. We employ an awful lot of people in Indonesia. There's been huge floods over the last couple of weeks that has impacted sites. So climate change is a big, big issue for us. When lights went out in Spain there last year at some stage, a huge amount of our businesses went down. We have the risk of cyber, all those kind of things. So we've got to be hugely aware of what's happening in the geopolitical as well. So keeping those things top of mind for people who are trying to do P&L in a tight margin business, and people can plan to say, well, we'll park that over there, and I've got to kind of make it interesting and say this could be important to you. So that's probably my greatest challenge, and it's an opportunity. But it has days where I kind of feel like, oh my God, how do I keep them motivated?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know we had this conversation before about sustainability, and absolutely for the last 10 years, it's been about sustainability and we all doing better on the planet. But firmly in the geopolitical, as you said, there are some governments are driving it, bus straight through and have no interest in it. But your sustainability is not just about, recycling goods. It's right across, as you said there, the challenge that you have, with workforce and people of being sustainable. You've broadened the wording of sustainability, really, haven't you?
Yeah, and I mean, even if I take the more basic, I say basic, but think about the carbon footprint and all the
Yeah.
things, the environmental impact. And Jason, who leads that in our team, we're thinking about things like even 325,000 people going to work every day. What's the carbon footprint of that?
Mm.
We have a global electric, I can't say it, electric fleet. We're trying to manage, if, for instance, we're providing services like, say, refuge then we're thinking about what's the impact. And all of our customers, and we're a B2B business, all of our customers want us to come with solutions to them. So, if you're a large, your company, you're going to be saying to us as a provider, well, how are you helping me to drive down my end results? Because at the end of the day, if we're providing the services, we've got to bring the solutions. And then I think, it's the same on the social side. We have to make sure that we have engaged employees who come into work and feel that they're getting things from our organization that help them to perform better. So a very real example of that, Chris, is that we are providing qualifications. We've just done 100,000 qualifications over this past year, free to our people, their accredited qualifications to them and their families. And we're just about to roll out a 250,000 qualifications. But we do that because social mobility is incredibly important in our business. We turn over about 100,000 people a year, and we need people, they're often people who have come from another country. Maybe it's a first job. Maybe it's somebody who has been in prison. Maybe it's somebody, there's lots of people starting over, and we're trying to give them that chance to rebuild their life and to make a new chance, etc. So that really impacts as well. So the stuff we do has to be very tangible, very
Yeah.
measurable, and very achievable.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So, what are you most excited about?
I suppose I'm most excited about the opportunity, because again, 325,000 reasons why we why we do what we do, and I think about the impact we have in the world. So again, going into the numbers, so if I always just do a metric that we most families or groups or whatever people's makeup of life is, but in a social setting, people can be around 4 people in their home if we take that as an average. So if you take our 325,000, you multiply that by 4, that's a million plus people in the world that we impact on. We're in the top for 40 employers in the world. So our impact can be huge for good, or our impact could be not so, not so good. So we obviously need to make sure I'm excited about the impact we can make, the difference we can make, and then being able to, hopefully be able to do it a little bit differently around tangible outcomes. So we're working with a company and organization now, and it's something we just started this year, called the Social Value Portal, who are
Okay.
coming out of the UK. So you're probably aware that in the UK, if you bid for government business, 30%, you have to demonstrate 30% of your bidding is around social value. So when we do that, we measure that social value, and that's something many companies in the UK do. So we decided to take that concept and take it global for us. So we're now measuring that social impact in all of our countries over the next couple of years. And we've measured 5 already this year, and it has a huge impact. So an example of that, in a country like Spain, where we employ 35,000 people, then if we put a measure up that everybody we employ is worth a value of about 10,000 euros to the Spanish economy, because we're a reliable employer who offers full-time jobs and does it in a fashion that we're responsible. Then think of the value of that. Think of the value that we in Spain employ 2,500 people with disabilities who otherwise might not have a job. We've taken offenders, we've taken people from different backgrounds, migrants, etc. So that has a huge impact on the socio-economic and social cohesion in countries. So I'm excited about
Yeah.
how we can do that globally.
It's interesting, yeah. I can see it in you. I know like that definitely is something you love doing, making difference. And I know you long enough now. I mean, you're a member of many boards, and you really throw yourself into things. Wherever you go, you want to make a difference. You want to make something better. I know this because I know you probably since 2017, 2018, and you were one of the first presidents I've dealt with in the chamber, and even in the chamber, you're heavily involved. You're there at executive meetings, council. You have that in you, that drive in you to make a difference. That's something you like doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of even hard to tell you where that came from, other than the fact I think growing up in County Limerick, I was born curious, and always felt good kind of. I look back at my parents and in life, and I think we were always kind of people that were trying to be good neighbors
Mm,
and decent people, and that certainly would have been my mum and dad, lending things and giving things and working in the community and stuff like that. And I just think we have if we're going to be, try to, do some good in society, then we have to put ourselves into it. But, Chris, the thing is that everything I've ever been involved in, I've got more from it. Like the chamber has been a wonderful thing to be involved in. And, we were chatting earlier on about the business awards and your presidency, etc. And I mean, it's so exciting to be so close to something, and you get great exposure, etc. And the same on boards, like Board Namona is a fantastic board to be involved in, and many other things I'm connected with. So you don't give, but you get. And
yeah.
I've built a career that kind of, I started out as a chef when I started off, believe it or not, and I went back
Did
to
you?
college. And,
Okay.
I never thought back then that this would be where I am today, doing a global role and doing all these kind of things. Sure, listen, that wasn't even in my imagination in the day.
Yeah. I didn't know. That's interesting. But I mean, you're an ex-president of the France Ireland Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, I mean, you're president of Alliance Française as well. Is that right?
I
You're
am
a member
indeed.
of member of many boards. Your Chevalier Award. Where do you get the time to do all this? How do you do all that? And you travel.
I'm probably one of those people. First of all, I suppose, in the modern world, we're in the hybrid world. I'm very lucky that, I work mobily. So
Yeah.
like I met someone before I came in. I'm here at the French Chamber office for this morning, but I met somebody in a local hotel this morning for a coffee that I needed to pick up and catch up with. And when I was finished there, I just opened my laptop, did a call, then I came in here. And the truth is, whether I'm in an airport or whatever, I just work wherever I am. So I don't have a set location. And I suppose I've been lucky that, partner wise and everything, I've got a lot of leeway to be able to be, I'm not sort of bound into kind of a stopping hour every day, but that can be a disadvantage as well. And
Yeah.
I wasn't lucky enough, I suppose, to have kids, but if I had, that might have changed life. And I understand that makes things different. But I'm able to give a lot of my time, but then that time gives back. And truly, everything's kind of for periods of time, as you know yourself. You'll do this for a period of time, and it's wonderful. And then you step into being the vice president, or sorry, the ex president, and
Yeah.
and that's great. But the experience leaves you the better for it. So nothing ever is without rewards, and you push yourself for a while, but then it's always pays back.
Do you think, I mean, I know, you've worked in lots of companies and you member a lot of boards, you met lots of people. You really strike me as a people person. You like meeting people and talking to people and listening to people. You're a good listener. That's the one thing. Some people like to talk about themselves, but you like listening and, taking on board what you always remember something that that person said. So obviously, you do like those roles. It's not only from a professional point of view, but also personally you like doing it as well.
Yeah, well, I think Ireland is a very relational place. I was again the person I met this morning is coming new to Ireland, actually from Denmark, and finding a job and trying to kind of find that this lady was finding her way and things. And I was saying to her, Ireland's very sticky. You know people, you get to know people, things are done. I think a
Mm.
lot has to do with our history. You can't just do business, and I'm sure you're a master at it, as you can't just do business just because you met somebody once. You have to get to know them, you build trust, and it's very relational. And after a period of time, then you can pick up the phone to somebody and start to do business. But you need to kind of you need to build that integrity first. And I suppose I've just loved that, and it's part of what I grew up in. Again, in communities, I grew up in a farming family, and it was all about ask your neighbor for help, you give to your neighbor, you put yourself out. Like, I think about it, when we would have funerals or God, something happened, then everyone would be out there marshalling and helping and supporting, and that's just how it is. And I think it's the Irish way. That's
Yeah.
why we're friendly and it's easy to do business with us. People just like doing business with us. We're easy, but we like the social part as well. So I'll put my hand up to that part. Nothing I like more than that glass of champagne and chatting with people. So that helps as well, Chris.
Yeah. No, I get that, but I thought it was very funny earlier on. You said to me about chambers and about the French chamber, but the food and the drink is always so much better. I thought, and it's amazing how we all remember these things. But again, you're right. The Irish, we like to mix, we like to socialize, we like a bit of crack. We don't take ourselves too serious, but we get the job done. That's the thing, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely. And chamber is a great way of doing that. I remember when I first joined the chamber, and it's many, many moons ago now. But it was straight away the instant friendship of everybody, and you'll know that
Yeah.
yourself. You came in first time I came in, there were a whole bunch of strangers, and like now there's people that I go to things with, I'm involved in. You get a connection through something.
Mm.
And you might say, because I think often people say, can we be cliquey or, in Ireland, full stop.
Mm.
And, at the end of the day, it's a small society when all's said and done. But actually, I think genuinely people, offer the hand of friendship and try to help. And that's what's really, really lovely is that
Yeah.
you get a network that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I think it helps us all just do good business and be decent.
No, absolutely, I agree. So, what is the one thing you know now that you'd wish you had known 5 years ago? Now, 5 years ago, you're probably in Sodexo, were you?
Well, just about to leave.
So, you look back and go, God, I wish I knew that 5 years ago.
Well, if I go even a bit further back, and excuse me for expanding the horizon, but
Okay.
I think about when I was running the Sodexo business here, and probably similar things now in this, is that not to be afraid of your ambition. I think it's incredibly important, and that's maybe one of the negatives to us as Irish people. We slightly oh no, and we don't like to overblow ourselves, and we're subtle maybe a little bit around those things. And I wish that I had, probably even pushed the organization more for further investment, and that because the strength of this marketplace and how we can do business here is so fantastic. And I wish that I had kind of known about my own ability to push that further and grow the business even more. So, I look back and I say it now to the next generation is don't be afraid to kind of, expand, to have big ambitions, to see yourself. And then I think lastly on that is that, we ourselves as human beings, our capacity to take on things is enormous. And, a job shouldn't define you, a role shouldn't define you, your background shouldn't define you. I'm just an ordinary, farmer's daughter from County Limerick, grew up known feck all really. But the truth is, none of that defines my ability to be as good as anybody else. And I think that's wonderful. We all can just do great things. And Irish people are in many parts of the world running the world. And I think, So if I know something, it's that we should just trust that instinct, I think.
Yeah. No, no, what's next for you? What do you do next? Just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, no, God, no. I mean, I've got great ambitions to have more leisure time,
Yeah.
um, but not leisure time to be sitting doing nothing. I probably look at my current role and say, it's got a time frame in it. I'm in the latter end of my 50s, without giving anything away,
No, I wouldn't have
and
said that, Margot. But anyway, okay. Yeah.
thank you, Chris. So, I'd like to see myself sort of maybe my next role would probably to go out of full-time employment and to do maybe a bit of consultancy or a bit more board work. I'm certainly open to boards. I've done my diploma in corporate governance, etc. So to do some Irish boards and Irish companies, like I love being part of an Irish energy
Mm.
board, etc. And to help companies, because I can bring a lot of expertise. I think, I've been a P&L operator, I've run an FMCG, I've run a low margin organization,
Yeah.
and now I have a global perspective to bring. So how I can help companies to bring those changes, and more than anything else, I'm used now to doing transformation. I've been in some fairly big projects over the last couple of years, and you learn how the change is constant. So finding and merging that over the next 2, 3 years, kind of finding my way into that is the next thing. And then more leisure time in my life, not to do, as I said, not to do nothing, but Sarah and I purchased a little, what we call a lock and leave in France a couple of years ago. And I want to kind of go traveling more and get in the car and go off for days and drive to another country. And that's a beautiful thing about Europe.
Yeah.
You can
Quite amazing.
drive around and have a nice time. So yeah, before I'm too old and I can't enjoy it, I intend to spend my nieces and nephews' inheritance.
Yeah. No, look, Margot, there's no questions because you've explained everything, and I'm delighted that we had this conversation. 'Cause I really find you so interesting, and I'm in awe, and I mean that genuinely of what you've achieved over the last couple of years. And I have no doubt that you're going to achieve lots more going forward. You're a great company. You were a great president. You're a really interesting person to talk to. I think, but the fact that the people are going to listen to this later on, they're going to be, wow. Look at, you have such a diversity, and that's the word I use, which has come whenever I think
Mm.
of Margot, I think of diversity every single time. You've got so many skills and talents, but it was a pleasure to talk to you today, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, and hugely appreciate your time. And thanks for being a great president and onwards and upwards.
Thanks, Margot. Thank you.